Hello there, folks. Mayo Best here for the Blitz Business Development Show, and I am your host. Today, I've got a question for you. How do you market through the noise of your competition? It's a question that not many really have a really good answer for, I found, especially when it comes to small business owners. When we come back after paying our bills here, we're going to really dig into that answer and give you a very powerful takeaway as we continue with part 2 of our 3-part series about advertising. Well, this week, we're going to actually discuss the different types of advertising that you can actually do for your business. All right, we'll be back in just a moment. Hello and welcome to the Blitz Business Development Show. My name is Mayo Best and I'm a business consultant and coach as well as the founder of the Blitz Business Development Academy. This is the show that provides guidance, resources, and access to best practices to help you advertise, manage, and build geometric profits. From freelancers and home-based business owners to startups and storefronts, you will learn how to start small as you think and grow big. The Blitz Local Deals Club is a free membership-based app and service that offers consumers the ability to find the best deals, coupons, and savings available in their neighborhoods. This exclusive free membership connects you to the best offers from local pizza and sandwich shops, bars, restaurants, stores, and service-based businesses. Members will even gain access to rewards and loyalty programs, making this the ultimate money savings app on the planet. And the best part is, not only can consumers take advantage of the best deals and discounts, but also help support their local businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is all made possible at the click of a button. So, become a free member and get access to your local deals today. All right, folks, we're back. Now, look, this week, we're going to go and start diving a little deeper and get really specific as to what types of advertising you can actually do for your business. But I want to answer that question. The question that was posed in the very beginning of the intro was, how do you market through the noise of your competition? Now, what most people tend to do is what everybody else is doing. But what I want you to do is to envision yourself going to a party, right? And when you go to that party, you're dressed up, you're looking nice, and the music's pumping, everybody's dancing. And you start talking to someone. You start talking to another person. People aren't really noticing you because they're in their own world. They're not really paying you attention because you're technically blending into the background of the moment because everybody's dancing, everybody's singing and having a good time, right? Well, what do you think your chances are of actually getting the attention of everyone in the room by you doing that? Okay, it's probably not going to be pretty strong. You're going to probably have a very slim chance of getting everyone's attention if you just try to keep talking and playing and singing and dancing with everyone else. There's no reason for anyone to pay any more attention to you than everyone else that's doing the exact same thing. So I think you get that. But what if you went to the same party? And I want you to imagine that everybody there is wearing their nice clothes and everything, right? Everybody's looking good. You show up in an all-white suit, okay? Just completely white suit. You go out and you go into the middle of the dance floor and you just stand there. Literally, just stand there. Now, notice you haven't said a word, but what do you think the chances are of people starting to pay you attention? Because now you're standing out, even though you're not really doing anything, but you're in an all-white suit, which is going to probably raise some questions in and of itself, especially when everybody else is wearing all different types of colors. And you're just standing still. You aren't dancing, you aren't talking, you're just simply still. Now, there's a saying that comes to mind when I think of this little scenario that we just created. And that quote is, still waters run deep. And it's something about someone that is actually still in the midst of the storm or in the midst of the commotion that draws attention. Now, what's interesting about this scenario is that the person didn't have to try to scream louder than anyone else. The person didn't even have to open their mouths. Yet we all know based off of what I'm telling you and how we've described this, that this person would definitely attract attention. So one way to look at the scenario is really simple, is that if you want to market through the noise of your competition, right, then you're going to have to do something different, and you're going to have to do something that stands out, that everyone is not doing. Now I'm going to take and translate this into advertising and marketing terms, but I just want you to walk away with this concept and this idea of how you stand out at a really high level, sort of visually, so that I don't want you to think that I'm really trying to tell you have to do any one thing, use any one best practice, or use any one type of advertising or marketing, but more important, using one or how you use the advertising tool. Because I think that's important to note as well, that, you know, advertising tools are different from the tactics that you use with those tools. Okay. So, you know, one person can do a video and another person do a video as well that lasts the exact same amount of time, but the experience of those two different videos can be dramatic. So I really want you to keep that in mind as we move forward with anything having to do with advertising or marketing. Okay. Think outside of the box, folks. You know, one of the most important lessons I ever learned, I learned in kindergarten when I learned how not to color within the lines. Probably was one of the best things that I ever learned, which is how not to color in the lines and to stand out and to go against the grain. But I have to say, you do want to use some wisdom and discernment as to when you color outside of the lines. It's important to learn some of the rules, learn how things work first, then you break the rules. And you want to carefully select which rules you're going to break. You don't want to break every rule, because rules are there for a reason, and mostly they serve you, but sometimes they don't. And sometimes just because you break a rule doesn't mean necessarily that it has to hurt someone else. In fact, I would never encourage you or suggest that you should do anything to ever hurt anyone. But breaking rules sometimes doesn't hurt anyone. It's just a different type of thinking. And a lot of times rules were meant to be broken. They're made by people, and they can be broken by people. But be careful as to what rules you break. That's all I want to say, because I don't want to give you guys any bad advice. So with that said, I'm going to tell you which advertising solution that I'm going to recommend to you first. Okay. And we're only going to cover one in this show today, and we'll cover one more in our next episode, because that'll conclude the 3 parts to this series. So this first one is going to be something that you're probably going to think I would never recommend. You know what that is? All right. No suspense is killing you. TV. Yes, absolutely. Good old-fashioned TV. Folks, I'm going to give you my second takeaway today. It's something I don't normally do, but I'm going to do it for you guys because I really, really, really want you to understand why I'm suggesting this. Now, I'm going to give you my personal testimony to why I believe in the power of TV. Now, for those that do not know, I actually used to be in the entertainment industry for about 25 years before I was doing what I'm doing now. And I actually used to be on the performing end. And to some degree, I actually work behind the scenes as well, technically, both as a editor, filmmaker, and actually an executive producer. But I really want to speak to more so the power of what I learned about TV, really briefly, as a person who was trying to sell something about themselves, which is an actor, which is what I was at the time. I used to be on the show The Wire, okay, with HBO. That was pretty much the 3rd season. Episodes, actually I did about 7 or 8 episodes in the season. And the reason why I say that TV is so powerful, Because believe it or not, and by the way, during this time, folks, I had locks, I had longer hair, you know, I was probably about 30 or 40 pounds lighter, looked completely different in a lot of ways. But the point is that till this day, and that was well over 10 to 12 years ago that I did this show. This was a long time ago. I still get people coming up to me. Listen, and these are not just folks that's based in the US. When I moved to California over 10 years ago, there were people that were recognizing me from the show from the UK. And it really dawned on me, wow. You know, you hear, of course, and this is going to sound silly, but you hear, of course, that, millions of people will see you on TV, but you don't really realize that, yes, millions of people that you will never, ever meet are going to see you through this apparatus, through this visual audio megaphone called TV. And it is fascinating as to how much exposure you can get and how long that exposure actually lasts. Think about it. No matter how old you are right now, you probably remember a commercial, right? From when you were growing up. You might remember even the jingle from the commercial. Okay? You might remember how the theme song went. See, we remember TV because it is a audio visual. It's a form of marketing that really engages quite a few of our senses. Okay? And the more senses that you can engage in a form of advertising, the more chance you have of imprinting yourself on the viewer. This is why until this day, it has not changed, folks. Even with the advent of social media and all of the phenomenal things that you can do with social media, good old-fashioned TV is still king in a lot of ways. Okay? So what I'm going to do is, for the next few moments, folks, and this will probably not be a long show as I normally have, but I'm just going to give you a few more reasons as to why I'm telling you right now that TV is the way to go. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah, but Mayo, we can't afford TV. That's why we don't do it. And you know what's funny? A lot of small businesses actually think this. And this is not true in so many shapes and forms. But don't worry, I'm not going to leave you hanging. I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't suggest something to you guys that was totally out of your reach. So definitely keep listening, because at the end of the show, I'm going to show you how this is more than possible for you to be able to get your hands on as an advertising solution. But before we go there, I'm going to give you some stats that you guys really should know as you're considering using TV as a form of advertising for your business. So let's go to the first stat. Advertising influences 90% of consumers in their purchases. Think about this. And guys, as I read these stats, don't just write them down and don't just listen to them. And it's definitely okay to do that. But I want you to really think about what these stats are saying relative to what you actually do. How often has TV influenced your buying decision? Because remember, folks, if you are doing it, then there's a very, very good chance that other people are thinking the exact same way that you do. So think of yourself relative to every statistic that I read. And I'm not saying that everything I read here, everything I give you is going to be something that you do, but every point of connection that you make to this on a personal level is something that you should really note, because what it means is, wow, if I'm thinking like this, it's a good chance that so are my customers. Okay? So let's move on to the next one. Advertising influences almost all consumers to make purchases, but only 10% of consumers said advertisements do not influence their purchasing decisions. So that pretty much honestly kind of corroborates the last stat that I gave, saying that advertisements influence 90% of consumers in their purchases. Okay, so kind of backs up the exact same statistic. So think about that, folks. How often does advertising influence you and your decisions? Let's move on to number 5. Americans are exposed to 100 to 5,000 advertisements per day, a number that is rapidly growing with the increase of cable channels and tech devices. Now, folks, this is huge. And we're not going to really get into digital TV right now, but I do want to sort of talk a little bit about it and say that, listen, it's not the way it used to be. Before, the only forms of advertising for TV that we had was literally when you turn on your TV and that's it, mainstream broadcasting. That has changed dramatically. Okay. Now, not only can we watch commercials on regular TV, there are commercials on literally hundreds, if not thousands of platforms, okay, that are getting a ton of traffic. Okay. So, you've got options that you never had before. Yet at the same time, what has not changed about TV is its power and its depth and efficacy as that relates to penetrating the minds and the quote unquote programming of the audience. All right, let's go to number 6. According to Berkshire Hathaway, a study finds television's impact on consumer purchasing behavior is greater than all other media combined. That's extremely interesting. Listen, I do want to say something. When it comes to social media, it's awesome, but to a degree, you pay for what you get. And it's not that social media is bad by any stretch. I use social media myself, but I'm trying to get small business owners to think, how do I market outside of the noise? How many small businesses are taking advantage of this type of advertising? And again, I understand why a lot of them aren't, because they think they can't afford it. They think that it costs more than it actually does. And they do not realize how attainable that this type of advertising is. So think about it. If all your competition, and a lot of them they're marketing and advertising on places like Facebook and Google. And by the way, that's becoming more and more expensive. All right. Why not market to your prospects, to your potential clients, where they are actually going? And they're not just going on Facebook. They're not just going on Google. All right. They're not just in those locations. They're everywhere. They're watching TV. They're definitely spending tons and tons of hours watching all types of video and different types of platforms. So the consumption for this is huge. Okay, so doesn't it make sense that if you're trying to market through the noise of your competition, that you use something like TV? Okay, let's move on. Number 7. 60% of consumers make purchase after seeing or hearing the advertisement on TV and print. 45% online, 43% on social media. Folks, that's crazy. This is actually outperforming what's happening online, but you don't hear this. And that's the whole point of me sharing this information with you, is that these are not things that you normally hear. Nobody's really talking about TV the way they used to. Social media has stole the shine from TV and radio, and now even podcasting for a bit. But podcasting, honestly, is kicking butt. And we're going to get into that as well at another time. But podcasting by itself is, goodness gracious, advertising on a podcast, the amount of exposure that you get, the fact that it's archived, and how long people will listen to a podcast versus even a video is very interesting. But we'll get into that another time. Today we do want to continue to talk about TV. Okay, so this is huge. Those are big numbers. So even with the advent of social media, TV advertisements are still trumping the power of, marketing, or advertising, I should say, to your prospects. Okay, so let's move on, folks. Number 8. Advertising through traditional mediums is seen as the most trustworthy. 61% of consumers trust TV. 58% trust print. 45% trust radio and podcasts. 42% trust digital out of home. Now, for those who don't know what digital out of home is, that's basically like the banners and that you see, the advertisements that you'll see, like say maybe even in, let's say 7-Eleven or someplace like that. That's digital out of home advertising, banner ads and banner displays and so forth. So folks, these are all types of advertising that are very powerful. We actually even have access to, and that we can use as well. But my point to you is this is huge. And it's interesting. A lot of small businesses are missing out on this. Trust me. And to be honest, I don't think that the bigger companies want you to know this, because that means you'll be starting to compete with them. And this is why they have so much, there's so much attention on social media, and most businesses have no clue of the other types of very powerful, good conversion based advertising solutions that are out there. And some of you may have never even heard of. So that's why I'm here to kind of hip you guys to both the old school things that you think are old school, but are still extremely effective and attainable. Okay. And TV is still one of them. So, but let's talk about that really briefly though. Trustworthy, credibility. One of the things that is most difficult to do as a small business is to get that credibility and get that trust. And that's what's so powerful about TV. See, people think about even yourself. When you see someone on TV, especially if it's a commercial, you may not say this out loud. You're not going to articulate this or verbalize this, but in the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh, well, they must be credible. Well, they must probably be legit, I would imagine, because they're on TV and it's a commercial. And we give that type of latitude to companies that we see on TV, because along with TV comes the perception of credibility. And if you're a small business and you're trying to get your name out there, that type of brand exposure that's synonymous with that type of credibility is huge for you. It's huge. And it'll get people to do more business with you faster, because they're not questioning whether or not they can trust you. All right. And I've got to say that honestly, next to third-party verification, next to someone actually recommending you through word of mouth, TV, I would personally say, is probably one of the next best things you can do to get the same type of credibility that someone would give you by being recommended. Okay, so TV is just huge, guys. So many benefits. All right, let's move on. Number 9. The least trustworthy advertising mediums are online. 41% for social media, 38% of advertising influences 81% of millennials ages 18 to 34 make a purchase, and just 57% of baby boomers 55 and older. So let me read that again, folks. The least trustworthy advertising mediums are online. Okay, 41% of social media, which is, I guess, some of the lowest. 38% of advertising influences 81% of millennials ages 18 to 34 to make a purchase, and just 57% of baby boomers 55 and older. Wow. So 38% of advertising influences only 81% of millennials. That's a really low number. 38% is how much the millennials are actually trusting online social media in terms of advertising. All right. Not that they're not using it, not that they don't love social media, but in terms of the advertising. And it's even It's a little higher, it looks like, for baby boomers, where it's 57%, but it's still pretty low relative to the type of trust that you get from advertising on TV. So that's pretty huge. Now we come to number 10. Those with higher household incomes, 55%, are more likely to make a purchase after seeing or hearing an advertising than the middle 48% and lower 45% households incomes. So those with a higher household income, which represent 55%, are more likely to make a purchase after seeing or hearing an advertisement than the middle 48%, which is, and low 45%. That's a little confusing. I'm going to erase that and say, okay, yeah, we're gonna have to do this. Shit is confusing. I don't even understand the trustworthy. Okay, we're going to do number 9 over. Okay, so number 9, 59% of marketers said that they will be increasing their budgets for advanced TV, including data-driven linear TV and addressable TV. So folks, one of the powerful things about TV now, especially with the digital era, is that there's some things that you can do with your business in terms of advertising and metrics and really tracking your results that you could never do in the past. And that is the power of programmatic advertising. Okay, and we're not going to dive into too much programmatic stuff today, but I'm just going to tell you right now, there's a reason why these companies are starting to use these types of advertising platforms, because I mean, not only can you now get the exposure that you want, not only do you get the influence, not only do you get the credibility and get the trust, and do you extend your brand, but you also have the ability to really measure your results, and in a lot of ways have direct call to actions, or CTAs, as you might say, as that relates to what you're showing on the screen. Now you're starting to see a lot more technology being infused into the advertisements, like QR codes, which is something that I actually use myself. So imagine, folks, being able to go from somebody watching your commercial about your business, scanning a QR code, and they can actually be taken directly to a website where you're selling your product or your service, and they sign up right then. See, they're utilizing and leveraging the exposure and connecting with the technology that relates to the smartphones and the handheld devices. And this is so game changing, and it's attainable to you. Okay, now, can't say this enough, guys. Can't stress this too much. This stuff is just too powerful for you guys not to be taking advantage of. So let's move on to number 10. In the long term, 3 years after campaigns were over, 86% of the campaigns resulted in a profitable return. So 86% of the campaigns that were basically initiated 3 years prior were still seeing profitable returns. They're still getting the ROI on investing in commercials. See, once you guys pay for a commercial, okay, I know you're thinking, yeah, but Mayo, we can't afford this. Trust me, you can afford it. Probably a lot more easy than you might think. But let's just say you could afford it, right? You get a commercial. Now, I know a little bit about that world because I used to be in it on the other side. When a commercial would run, it would not just run once. It would run in sort of perpetuity over and over again, way into the future. So you get all this exposure and you can still get a return on your investment for something that you did months ago, if not years ago in this case. Now, the question is, can you do the exact same thing with SEO? If that's what you're investing into as your advertising, or even with a Facebook ad. I don't know if you noticed, but Facebook pixels, if you guys know what that is, where it allows you to retarget, it only lasts for about 500 days and that's it. All right. So there's some powerful things that you can do with TV now, especially digital TV. And it's all kind of starting to cross-pollinate, quite frankly, from like, say, regular digital TV into display ads and digital out of home, digital in home. Okay, those things are really starting to kind of mesh, which is a great thing for you. And the costs associated with these things are quite minimal. Now, I said to you guys that I was going to give you access to a document that's going to give you the ability to really look at these stats for yourself. Now, you're going to get that document inside of the show notes, okay? So you need to download this episode to get that document, okay? Now, with that said, folks, that really kind of wraps up this episode. I just want you to know that this is more than possible. These are the types of solutions that we actually promote and give you access to through the BLDC. Okay, that's why we created this show. We're trying to help small businesses gain an edge that you're going to need. In fact, you need it right now. Now, at the time of recording of this show, they're starting to shut down the schools again where I live, like here in Maryland, and even in, I think, DC, they're starting to shut down some schools as well. Folks, it's a good chance that we might have to go back into lockdowns again. And what I keep trying to encourage small businesses to do is to stop looking for the light at the end of the tunnel as it relates to this pandemic, and just start hunkering down and adapting to the light that's in the tunnel with you, which might be nothing more than you and your ingenuity and your ability to adapt and get creative. And instead of trying to go against the grain of where we are in these times, learn how to adapt and go with it. I'm going to tell you right now, it's very difficult to ice skate upstream, to ice skate on a river going up. It doesn't work. You've got to go with the flow. You've got to adapt, folks. We're in a time where we need to learn and unlearn and relearn everything that we ever knew. And it's not just because of this pandemic. There are a lot of other things that are happening in the background and that's at play that we need to start adapting to. Now, I know it's very difficult to keep up with all of the different types of technologies and advertising options and platforms, and that's why I'm here. The reason why we have this show is to inform you of best practices that you're probably not aware of. Like, folks, did you know it's possible to working with us, and again, it's just a little bit of a shameless plug, but listen, that's why we're here, to be honest. We're here to educate you and make sure that you get access to things that you're probably not going to hear about unless you're looking or someone tells you. And we're here to tell you. But it's possible, folks, for you guys to get a commercial for less than the price of your average SEO cost, which is typically around $1,000 to $2,000. You get a commercial produced one time for a fraction of that cost, quite frankly. And then you put that commercial into an advertising campaign, and you guys will be running commercials on TV for far cheaper than you think. cheaper than you're probably paying for some of the things that you could be paying for now. Now, some of you, I know you aren't paying anything. And like I said last week, that's not what you want to do either. You don't want to not be advertising. You need to get your dollars working for you. And that doesn't mean you have to use TV. Okay. TV is very attainable, but it's probably a little bit more expensive than some other forms of advertising, which we have access to those things as well. Okay. So we're going to be unfolding that to you. But guys, this is why I want to encourage you. Number one, keep tuning in every week. I'm going to keep trying to educate you. Very soon, next season, we're going to be bringing in other types of businesses. This first season, I really wanted to focus on educating you guys and helping folks that are just starting. So I dedicated these first 12 episodes really just to you guys, because I know it's tough out there, and I know that you got a lot going against you. Yet at the same time, you've got a lot going for you, but you need to be able to sift through all of the information. So what I'm here to do is to help you in that process and help guide you and help you navigate through some of these things that you have access to and pick the things that make sense and are right for you. So with that said, folks, definitely check out the show notes. I'm going to leave a link in the show notes today that you can download on your podcast, and you'll be able to see some of the best practices that I'm talking about. Okay. And I'll make sure that they're in there, and there's going to be some more. So you can just stay tuned and come back to us next week. We're going to dive even deeper into another best practice in terms of advertising. And that'll be our last show for a while, talking about advertising. I don't want to bombard you guys with too much. But listen, if you've got any more questions about these things, you guys can always send me an email at mayobest@paradigmtodigital.com. Okay? Send me an email, ask me a question, whatever your questions are, I'm here for you. That's going to be in the show notes as well. All right. Listen, until next time, folks, thank you so much. Take care. God bless. And I will see you in our next episode. Bye-bye.